strategy,
design,
marketing,
UX,
digital.
development.
This is Agencies That Build. This show is dedicated to leaders and teams that design and deploy in the digital world. My name is Jessie, and I'm a marketer and an agency owner.
And I'm Varun. I'm not a marketer, but a coder and an agency partner.
This show is sponsored by Together We Ship.
On a mission to help agencies grow.
All right, rock on. Here we are. Varun, my friend, how are you? Are you enjoying the wonderful stormy tropical weather we've been having here in Massachusetts recently?
I've never seen that much of rain before.
I heard it was crazy last night.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
I know. I had a fallen tree in my backyard just because of that rain.
Ooh.
So I need to get rid of that. So anyways, who do we have today?
Today's guest, I'm looking forward to it because, of course, we've been chatting before we started recording. So today's guest is the creator of a leading front-end application design and development agency that specializes in designing and developing design systems for web applications. Say that 10 times fast. With 2 decades of experience in managing and designing large-scale responsive websites, he's an expert in planning and executing front-end strategies for responsive websites with a mobile-first approach. His creativity, technical expertise, and eye for detail are unmatched, and his dedication to delivering exceptional user experience is unwavering. I am happy to welcome founder and CEO of South Left, TJ Pitre. Welcome to the show. TJ,
good for
or the podcast. I know Varun is going to mix things up. He's got an icebreaker question. Go. Let's hear it.
Right. I'll start with asking you, what is the most difficult thing that you have done in your life?
Wow.
You guys?
My most difficult thing that I've done in my life.
You're putting him on the spot.
Oh, yeah. That's like saying, like, what's your favorite food?
I can start.
You answer
mine
it,
because
and it
I'm
gives-
doing.
Put me in a ball field. It's like,
I'll tell you what, because this is so fresh in my mind because I'm going through that right now. I signed up last week for this Hard 75 challenge, which basically is, I don't know if you guys heard of that. It's like 45 minutes workout 2 times, 1 food. So, and then the third is I think you do 10 pages a day, and then you take a picture of yourself and post it and all of that. For me, all of that is fine. The biggest thing would be for me to have no sugar. So this is like 8th day of no sugar for me. And I have like sweet tooth. I enjoy sweet so much. And I never had no sugar for that much or that many days. And I'm just into 8th day right now. I have like 77 more days or 67 more days to go. So this is like already so hard. Yeah.
When you get to the end, so you don't know if you know this, I'm type 2 diabetic. So I've gone through like sugar detoxes and things like that in the past. The moment you get to eat a little bit of sugar after this whole thing, it's going to taste so delicious. It's like one of those opposite moments where you go through this hard thing and then you eat it and you're like, oh, this is so, like eating a strawberry or eating an apple was like the best thing ever. When
it's like your taste buds, like
they reset.
Like, I guess when you're always, it's like sweet things taste sweeter when you get to that
amazing.
point.
And things that you didn't realize were sweet taste so like a lemonade, man. Just you wait. It's going to be worth it.
I don't have a giant sweet tooth, but I appreciate like bold flavors. So that sounds like something I might want to do just to be able to reset my sweet taste buds. How do you feel, Varun? Is it like, do you feel different, more energetic or less energetic, sluggish?
I haven't really felt anything different yet. I mean, I'm definitely more tired because I'm now doing workouts every day. I've never done that consistently. I mean, I've done consistently, 3 or 4 times a week, but now every day, 45 minutes. That's like, and my body's definitely, telling me, showing signs of tiredness, but it's still doable. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I love that type of tiredness, but it's a sweet that kills me. So
you still have the cravings if they all
they go away. Don't worry.
We'll my wife and I did so I had my scary thing now, but I just wanted to comment on yours. We're ketogenic lifestyle for a while, which pretty much eliminated all sugar and then like
Mhm.
anything like, very limited amounts of carbohydrates. And she was more of a sweet tooth, so it was really hard for her to give up things like cookies and candy. I don't consider myself a sweet tooth. The things that I probably had the most trouble with was like pizza, because like I love making pizza, and like I call myself an amateur pizziola because I just love traditional Neapolitan style margarita pizza cooked in a brick oven. I even made my own little kind of hack, like regular, like how to get my own house oven up to the highest possible temperature without setting my house on fire. To make it almost get that leopard spotted skin. But giving those things up in pasta, just like I love like the 4 traditional pastas, cacio e pepe, like giving up those things was the most difficult part. But there was a moment, like, I don't know, I want to say like 7 or 8 days in, where it almost felt like there was like this brain fog that I didn't know I had, and it was lifted, and it felt as though like I was. This is going to sound wild, but I was having like an out of body experience. It was almost as like my spirit was elevated above me. And I remember being in this meeting where I'm like watching myself talking, but I'm not aware of the next thing I'm saying. And I'm just like coaching myself from like this spiritual level, going, yeah, you did a good job there, TJ. This is actually really working out well for you. That part was cool. It wasn't sustained. And we did the keto thing for, I don't know, probably like 8 months or so, and then started to just kind of waver as soon as like we kind of hit that the body type, and we're doing a lot of fasting in between too, because this has been like the autophagy was a big popular term. But now we kind of stabilized, and now we dial back on the gluten and we dial back on the sweets, just because we're getting older and like those things affect us differently now. So I can feel you on the sugar thing. I do have the occasional tempting for something sweet, but I try to limit the brownies. Those are probably my go-to sweet tooth items.
Yeah.
Back to your original question, though.
Yeah, the scary thing.
The scary thing, I think, for me, this is probably going to be a little more personal, but becoming a father for the first time, and I'm sure it's scary for everybody, but I was always under the impression that I probably wasn't going to have any kids. Like I grew up just thinking like I'm going to live my life and I'm going to go and travel. And this is before influencers and everything. I just had this idea that I was going to get into, this tech world and then, be that person who's on a cot in Bermuda, using Wi-Fi from somewhere, and then getting my work done like that. I remember going on vacations and seeing other people lounging by pools on computers, going like, I want that lifestyle, and that's what I want. And it sounds superficial, but I was just so keen on like being independent. And then I married, and my wife and I kind of saw eye to eye on that too. We're both like, we really want to do this thing. So we ended up moving to New York. We lived in Manhattan for 5 or 6 years, and worked for large enterprise level organizations, and thought that was going to be the thing, until we hit like our mid 30s. And that was when it was like, you know what, like the honeymoon era of living in New York was over. We've already teetered into that downhill side of living in New York, where it was like, this is the grueling part. No offense to the New Yorkers or anything, but it just always felt like when I'm leaving my apartment complex, like I'm on, that's it, showtime. Like I got to merge into the interstate of people, and then, file into my subway line and, go where I need to go for the day. It was all a wonderful experience. I don't regret any of it. But when we moved, I live in New Orleans now. So originally from New Orleans, came back down to New Orleans, and then immersed ourselves into the culture, bought a house, and then we're like, I guess what's next? I guess let's have a kid. Giving up that sense of like independence, that like I can go out whenever, because we come from a big family of foodies, like staying on top of food trends and what the next new restaurant or bar or whatever was opening was like our thing. Let's get family and friends invite to this, this new place. And like I said, this all sounds superficial now that I'm a dad with a third child on the way. Had like trying to keep one foot in that lifestyle while having another foot in I'm taking care of this new thing that I created lifestyle was the hardest and most difficult transition, because it wasn't always like conscious, like it was all these like subconscious things that were happening that you only realize until you're in it, and then you're like, wait, I can't do that anymore. Like these are the things that I just can't. This isn't an option now, because now I'm taking care of this human being. I just remember the moment when we bought, and everybody who's had a kid has probably had this moment, but we had the car seat all set up in the back, and in our first child did a little like a 3 or 4 day stint in NICU, but nothing serious. And such a small little creature, and the nurse wheels us, my wife, out, and we got the car pulled up in the under the overhang of the hospital, and then she puts the baby in the baby seat, and then she's like, bye. And we're like, all right, this is it. I just remember turning around and looking at this little thing going, all right, this is the next chapter. This isn't even the next chapter. This is like the next book. Like this is like the next book in the series of the lives of the Pitres. So difficulty wise, that transition to me was but also like it turned me into a brand new person that I'm excited to be, and it's somebody I never knew I would have been if I didn't jump headfirst into this new experience. And now look at me, like I loved it so much, I went and had 2, and now I got a 3rd one on the way. So I've fully embraced the adulthood lifestyle and completely detached myself from any of the thoughts of what I don't even know new restaurants are coming out anymore.
Can I just say ditto? Like literally, like everything you just said. Although we're good at one. Like we're one and done.
We said that for 6 years.
No. There's a story for not a podcast episode that like I won't go into. We're good.
Gotcha.
One and done. Her sibling is lying here on the floor and has 4 legs. So
gotcha. I respect that.
Like I would say I would say also too, like, if I can add one, and then we'll go to the myth busting question in our usual conversation. So I'm going to say exactly what wherever he is on the screen, exactly what he said. So another scary one for me, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but like starting an agency, like going to work for yourself. And so like I did it, I've done some stuff on the side, but I've always had regular income from I've worked at agencies and in-house and all of the things. And this is like, I know it's timely for the conversation we're about to have, but it really is, there's this moment of entrepreneurship that you go, oh, I just signed a really big client and I actually have to do all the things that I listed in the contract, and I have to do them. Like me, there isn't anybody else to like work with, there isn't anybody else, and like you have this and you're looking at your bank account going, how am I gonna, fortunately I have a partner, my husband would pay the bills, and it was a decision we made together, but it was like, now what? Like what are we doing? Is this real? Like I have to do all the things, like, bringing my daughter home from the hospital. It's like, oh, we're going to keep that alive. Otherwise we go to jail.
Same principles apply.
Right. It's like, you gotta pay the bills. Otherwise they take your house. Yeah.
No, I can relate to that too. It's that's a close second for me as well.
Yeah, I would say, and again, full circle, like, it's the lifestyle change. Cheesily enough, it's like finding out it was like a spontaneous, I don't feel well. Oh, by the way, you're diabetic. Which I could talk about forever because it's one of the best things that ever happened. And we will not go into it right now because I love food. We were big foodies like you guys. And it's like, you understand how food affects your body differently. This is like so off topic, but that was an
we should talk later about this. I got a lot of things that different diabetics in my family, and then we've also done a lot of research on some different diets and stuff that tend to trend with like what diabetics, typically the diet of a diabetic.
Well, and everybody's a little bit different, the way that it kind of works. So we are so off topic. I'm going to bring us back. So that was a good icebreaker. We should do that more often, Varun. I enjoyed.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe we'll.
Good luck with the 75 hard, man.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check in with you in 30 days.
I know. We all
Please
want to
do. Be my accountability partner, just make sure I'm on track.
Yeah.
All right, TJ, here we go. So what's some sort of myth, bogus strategy, misconception that you would like to set the record straight on? What do you got?
All right. So So I don't know if it's a myth, or it's probably more of a strategy. And don't come after me, other agencies, but
The joy of this
account
podcast
managers.
is everybody has a different opinion and it works for the way that their agency is built. That's one of the things that's really, really fun about these episodes is we've had such conflicting ways of managing. So don't just put it out there.
So I'll say so this is one that I think in the 11 years of us being around, that depending on the types of people you hire in what they're good at, what their skill sets are in, both in like skills that they've obtained on their own, that they just through lifestyle, and then skills that they obtain through academics, like coding, whatever, like stuff that they actually went to school for. If you hire the right people, and that's usually where it comes from, it's like putting the upfront work in, all the legwork in the beginning, and then going through the due diligence of having that person meet with the right people, so that way everybody kind of gives their own opinion, because there's certain keen things that everyone's looking for in a person's personality, in a person's experience level, their skill sets, all of those things. We've managed to go all 11 years without having like a tier of account management. In the way that we've done this is by hiring an experienced level of project managers who kind of almost work as account managers in a way, because they're just such wonderful human beings to interact with. We also have direct connections with the developers and designers that are on the projects. So in past experiences where we've coupled with other or partnered with other organizations, or worked with or have been subcontracted through other groups, or even working where we hire services where their software or whatever it is that we're signing up for. When it's a developer like myself, like my background's in design and development, and I want to speak to a developer because I think I know what the problem is with this service that I'm buying, and I know that it needs to be like can you up the memory limit on the server because I'm getting server timeouts. There's like a person that I have to talk to right here that I have to say, hey, this is the problem. And it's like, but I totally get the idea of there's workflows that have to happen sometimes to be able to track all these conversations that are happening and then route it to the specific person who's going to make that edit. Sometimes it's a little frustrating to go through that extra step because sometimes I feel like it's an unnecessary step. So I think we've successfully eliminated that barrier, because I know it sometimes can be a barrier to some groups that we work with, specifically in the industries that we work with. And one of the things that we try to stick with as part of like our core values is like this clarity and transparency and open line of communication. And by having like just the project managers and the actual resources, like the producers, the people who are actually creating the designs of code, as at the forefront, always accessible, has helped us eliminate that tier. Of course, I get brought in sometimes as the check-in quite often with the clients, just to confirm, hey, is everything going well? And then we do have one business relationship specialist who's just kind of the overseer of, are you good? Kind of throughout the whole agency. His job also entails a lot of proposals, the proposal creation, checking in on contracts, updating, renewing contracts, and a litany of other things, because he stays very, very busy. But I don't know if it's a myth, but it's just something that we've been able to succeed and continue growing without. I'm not saying like if we ever hit the threshold of like 35 people on our team, there may be a moment when we're like, you know what, I think the developers are getting, because we try to be very conscious of burnout. If they're trying to manage their own projects, like actually like get tickets done that are being followed in within their sprints, then there may be the need to pull in some additional levels in there to help buffer between PMs and the developers. But we haven't hit that point yet. I'm curious
to give some
feedback on it.
to give some context, I would like to hear who is your end client? Who do you work with? When what type of clients you have? Because I assume some of that also depends on the type of clients you have. So maybe just add some context to that.
Sure. So most of the time, Southwest is more behind the scenes type of agency, where I would say 80% of the types of relationships that we have are normally augmenting larger digital teams. So it'll be the person that we're mainly interfacing with is would be like a COO of like an enterprise organization, or like a product manager, or it could be a combination of a couple of people like that. That's like 40% of that side. And then the other is partnering with other organizations, digital agencies that offer complementary services. So it could be like one that offers very complex UI design. It could be PR firms, it could be SEO agencies, and they'll do some courting of a relationship, or they'll have a line to a good lead, and they're saying, we can't fulfill this within the services that our agency provides, and they need heavy duty front end engineering, and then they'll call us in, and then we'll go in there and be that portion of that project. Yeah. And then there, like at the very bottom is kind of like the direct consumer type site, where somebody found us through LinkedIn, or somebody found us through like outbound, like some kind of way somebody mentioned our name, and then we'll get an email cold inquiry, and we'll vet those pretty thoroughly. And then once we determine whether or not this is a good fit for us, then we'll proceed with it. Those are usually the not as frequent ones, but it's mainly the augmentation of other teams, and then partnering with other agencies that have similar services or complementary services.
I have a teeny tiny quick question. You had mentioned earlier that you do take initiative and check in with clients. You know, as a founder, not having account management, totally get it. You know, it is a misconception that you guys have made it work, that without it, especially with your, well-versed silent assassination team, silent assassins, I think is what you call them. But do you check in with all clients and just say, hey, I'm the founder, I want to know how your project went? Or is it select clients? Like, how do you, because I know that's something in various agencies I've worked with and for, some people do, some people don't. It's even like a question with CEOs, like, oh, this client, when I've worked in-house, should I check in with this client? Are they okay? And it kind of like raises a red flag sometimes on the client. Why is the CEO contacting me? But I get different in the agency world. I'm curious on your perspective with that, because I know that's always a like, do we or do we not? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it is selective. So it's selective in most of the ones that I check in on are the ones that came through personal relationships through me. So there's a lot of ones where it'll be through somebody that I had worked with when I worked at Martha Stewart, or somebody, or somebody who referred us, and it would look bad on the person who referred us if we weren't doing good. So in cases like that, I feel inclined to check in to say, are we doing good? There's a lot of other ones where our PM team will do a lot of the business development for us, because a lot of the ways that our business grows isn't through outbound marketing or like cold calls or anything like that, or social. It's usually through projects that we already have now, and it's either through us working through a phase one, and then turning a phase one into a phase two, and then so on, or branching out into like completely separate projects under that same client. Or it could be we work with that client, and that client really enjoyed our relationship, and then referred us to like a friend of theirs, and then we'd end up working with them. But that's the main types of people, I guess, I would check in on, to make sure that if it's a relationship that stemmed from personally through me, then it's one that I want to make sure that they're in good hands. But if it's relationships at our project management level created, and it's kind of more up to them to make sure that those things are going well. But I agree with you. It would be weird if there's a project that my face was never shown on, and all of a sudden I'm dipping in and going, hey, what's going on, y'all? Is everything good here? Because then it makes it almost seem like my team isn't doing a good job. That I could see how people would be a little concerned about why the CEO would be stepping in.
Or even
on
if
this
they
project.
set the expectation, if it's part of the process, or just, hey, we don't have an account management, I'm going to be your main point of contact. I want to let you know that our founder checks in with all of our clients throughout the process. Like if it's communicated that way, maybe it would feel a little more natural versus like, I know you mentioned it. That's why I was like, I wonder if he checks in with all the clients, because it's
But
definitely something.
even-
That's the role of
even-
our business relationship specialist. So he is involved with every contract, whether it's a
You're
maintenance
gonna hear from him
contract, whether it's a
regardless.
phase, whether it's an addendum, whether it's a brand new lead. So everybody, every project is aware of who he is.
Gotcha.
And so hearing from him, whether or not it's a relationship that I've created with somebody or somebody that a project manager obtained a relationship with, or
he's
or
on the
got
short
a
list
new,
regardless.
he rides that right in that middle line, and then like, so he's good with everybody, and like he's the person who's, so the project workflow usually ends up being like the courting phase, where it's him or I, or him and I, kind of working through whether or not this project is like a mutual beneficial fit for both of our teams. And then we kind of enter into this like contractual phase where we discuss the proposal, the SOW, whether or not we're going to do a discovery, and then what a schedule looks like. At the point of initiation, where the project's like 80% going to land, we bring in a producer. The producer is kind of like a PM and an account manager who straddles both of those lines before a project is executed, and then after the contract is executed. The producer kind of sits along that side, and then when the project starts, we have a kickoff. Then that producer, and there's like an executing project manager who goes into that project, and that's the person who's the glue that's holding that project together for the foreseeable future. But everybody who's involved in that project gets a taste of who the producer is and who that business relationship specialist is. So it shouldn't be any surprise if they hear from either of those people throughout the whole project.
That's good. Well, it's
I have
also
a
like
question.
someone gets hit by a bus. Sorry, Varun.
Yeah, we have a bus
You have
policy.
coverage. Yeah. Or wins the lottery. We call it win the lottery. Nobody wants to. This isn't Mean Girls.
That's a yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you can steal it.
So
we also
I
don't eat
have
the
a-
dog food. We drink champagne.
I have a question on your role for the relationship specialist, because that sounds like a very interesting role, very important role in terms of maintaining the, that account. How do you define what all activities that person has to do? I mean, I imagine like, yes, there's this, this is a scope of work, or these are the roles and responsibilities you have to do. But when you write it that way, that is still very, it is not measurable. So I wonder if there is some measuring factors or, metrics that you have that person has to check all these boxes every month, like some sort of scorecard, which they can maintain, that these are the things that you have to do for each and every account. Is there something like that you maintain to make sure that every account is being, covered, and that person is not missing anything?
Yeah. So the role is probably 25% strategy, 75% tactical work. And a lot of that tactical work is what you had just mentioned. It's almost like checking the boxes to make sure all these things are done in a recurring fashion. Yeah. So there's always going to be the things that are occurring in projects while the projects are happening now. So there's never any, there's with this role, in I'm always very conscious of burnout with this person in particular, but there's never any shortage of things to do. There's always two things that would happen all the time: checking with clients to get a temperature check to make sure everything is good, and if not, we go down a different flow chart. Like we look at why, and then we start to unhash reasons why things might be going on, and then we assemble another team to help fix if anything's on fire. Luckily, that's not the case most often. The other part is there's always generating leads, like to look into new ways of generating leads, whether it's a good friend of mine, Joe Rinaldi, calls it old gold. So like whether or not it's looking into like rekindling old relationships with people. And then so he's like the master of our Notion. So we keep everything in Notion, and he's a master Notion user. And so he has all these relational databases between projects and people and everything. So he does a great job with that. Maintaining that is probably a job in and of itself. But going through that, so there are things that if it's let's say it's a week where it's not heavy in proposal land or contract land or addendums and any kind of like administrative business administrative stuff, then that's usually when it goes to like, what's the recurring tactical things? We need to start checking in with clients. We need to continue to check in with clients. He has all these dates set up with reminders of like, okay, it's been 2 weeks since we checked into this project, where it was before. This project had like a 65% chance of leading. And then let's check in to see where we're at now, and then see if that number ends up getting nudged up or dialed back a little bit. And then there's the reaching back to the list of leads. So there's this long list of leads that we have that we'd like to get out 2 or 3 a week, which would be great. And these aren't AI generated. These aren't like templated things or anything. This is legitimate people who we've met or know from our past, and then we always write them a heartfelt email with the goal is to have 0 sales pitch in it. Like the idea is to say, hey, we're in the same industry. We know how this goes. I'm reaching out to say, hey, I just want to be at the top of your mind, just in case anything. I don't care. I don't know what you got going on, but I'm here and I'm around, and I just don't want you to forget about me. And I remembered the past project that we had worked on previously, and I remember really enjoying it, and we had a good time with it. Other things that he does is a lot of interesting strategy work. So this is a particular thing where he's not hired for this. He just ended up having to come with this amazing copy edit background. And
that's a win right there.
He's a wonderful writer and a very cerebral thinker. He has this. We created like a client matrix. It's like all these things where it's there's a way that people get plotted in certain areas to determine whether or not that it's worth doing more business with, or should we have them with clients, we have them with industries, we have them with project types, to where we can determine whether or not are these the ones that we should be chasing. And a lot of them are automated. It's based on us plotting values in I think he's got it in a Google form at this point, and then it spits out these numbers that then manifest themselves on a graph. So anyway, that's just touching the iceberg, tip of the iceberg on the types of stuff that he does. And a lot of that stuff, it's the goals for those, what you mentioned earlier, is like, how do you create a goal? It's like the goals are, how do we get better at these things? Like, how do we get better at generating leads? How do we do things that aren't like, we all get, a dozen emails or so a week from people who are just services spitting out these emails. I know because my name's TJ, T capital J. And when I get a T lowercase j, I know this is coming from this is like an automated email, and that's it. And sometimes you'll get like the hi curly bracket name, like the variable didn't make it inside of the slot. So but yeah, anyway, it's all about a lot of the role he defines for himself. And what we do is just try to give him the open road to be able to do it, because we know he's a smart cookie, and he's able to kind of figure out and say, all right, this is the way they're doing it. It's obviously not working. Let's try this way and see what sticks.
Well, now I know if I need to spam you that I should put T, capital T and capital J, so that you don't ignore me.
You got to make that J capital.
And it's great. It sounds like it could be its own topic of a podcast to just go through the process that you described. I'm also curious because you mentioned about your PMs who play a role of biz dev kind of in a way. So how do you train them? How do you guide them to think from that perspective of growing the business, right? Because when we hire PM, most of the companies where they have PM, they just stick to their specific role of, we need to manage this scope of work and just get this to finish line. To make them think beyond that, to make them think that this could be a bigger opportunity and identify more opportunities from that account is, I don't know, how do you how do you do that? So share some wisdom on that.
Yeah. So our secret is invest in your PMs. PMs can do more for you than what you would think that they could do. So like a lot of times PMs within agencies are like, let's just make sure this project is initiated. Let's make sure there's a schedule. Let's make sure it stays on budget. Let's make sure the client is happy, or maybe that could be your account manager person. Let's have our recurring check-ins. Let's make sure that at the end of the project that we've executed on time and within budget, and then we call that a successful project. That's great. That's like the baseline for like what's expected of a PM. Good PMs have like emotional awareness and technical aptitude. Like they understand the intricacies of like what a software development lifecycle is. And so within the process of having these, so we do a lot of what we do is agile, like agile with capital A. Like we do a lot of scrums and sprint grooming and all those types of things. And in these processes, within these workflows, we kind of have these like built-in check-ins to see whether or not there are items to be added to this project that are out of scope. And then those are opportunities. Whenever we hear out of scope opportunities, then that's a phase 2, or that's an addendum, or we can address that at another time. And the PMs have this awareness to lean into that and say, all right, I love what you're saying here. I think that's great. And it's kind of like the compliment sandwich. It's I really like what you're saying. Unfortunately, we can't take care of that right now. But what we could do is, as soon as this is done, we could follow up with an addendum, and then we can go ahead and scope that, and then prioritize it, and then estimate it, and then execute on that at a later date. So they all do that, and it's just, it comes with their past experience. Like I can't speak highly enough of our PM team. They're all like acutely aware of where those opportunities lie within, because they're the ones who are the developers speak to the clients often. The developments kind of do biz dev by doing good job, like by just like wow, like
what
just
happens
a lot of them
naturally.
Yeah. So they don't actually have to like really listen for cues. They're good at what they do. So automatically it's a wonderful experience when you're in a demo and there's somebody like demoing, the results of a UX discovery, and the room is just filled with delight, and you could feel it. It's just the vibe in the room. That designer, that developer just gave us a good dose of business development. So that means that they're happy, and then hopefully we can sustain that happiness level throughout the course of the project. PMs are more like listening for cues along the way. So they're looking at the eyes of the clients, and then they're like, okay, they're liking this. Like there could be some opportunities that you'll hear, like, you know what, I'm seeing what you designed there. I really feel like that area can use the Salesforce integration. And then that's a cue for the PM to say, I love that. That sounds like a great idea. I think that could really increase your whatever it is. I know it's not something. I'm gonna go ahead and jot that down, and we're going to communicate about that in a later date. And then they might have some side conversation where they discuss those things, and then hopefully it spins into another project. But yeah, right now, like it's the business development is like split into like different ratios across all of us within the team, and that's how we've gotten this far.
So I hate to break it to you, but I feel like you do have, while you don't have account managers, there are people who
They're built in.
It's like built into, good, finding a project manager with that level of like intuitive awareness. And you called it a compliment sandwich. I call it yes, no, yes. It's the same idea of being able to build that rapport and respect with the client to say, I love it. Let me put it on the short list. We'll chat about it later. Not for today's project.
Yeah. I mean, it does, like when I was going, it's when I had mentioned in the beginning about the myth of it, I wanted to stress it really is about the hiring part. It's like it's like knowing that you have a developer or a designer who is open to communicating, not just sitting in the dark and doing their thing. That's okay too. Everybody has their own project types that they exactly. But with the PMs, there's that awareness that we look for in the hiring process that could fulfill what would normally be somebody who's made for an account manager.
Well, let me ask you about that. How do you, outside of hiring for somebody who fits that mold perfectly, do you train for it? Do you, are there ongoing, like if you find someone who's like, we need a little bit more hand holding, or if you're in the middle of like what I've called succession planning in terms of getting more junior people in who may not know, like how do you guys internally support that PM growth and teaching them how to do those sort of things? Or do you, I guess is the question I should ask.
So a couple of things, a lot of things actually. There's courses that so at the very lowest level, that's usually a part of everybody's goal, including developers, because we open this up to the whole team. We use these courses called Star 12 courses, and we enroll the whole team in them, and then we add a couple of goals to their gusto, and then they're able to pick and choose whichever one. If a developer is interested in learning about how to manage teams, sign up for that course. It's all part of the annual account that we get. So that's one thing. It's like learning on your own. The second thing that we do is for PM specifically. We don't get paid by this company, but we're really big fans of Louder Than 10, which is like a PM training course, and they're amazing. There's a couple of people in the bureau who are in there, and I can't speak highly enough of the way that they teach PMs and how it applies to the type of work that we do. The other one is hire yourself a consultant. Like hire a kick-ass enterprise level seasoned 30-year vet of project management, and then do a 3-month engagement and have them work on your team, and then examine your workflows, have interview each PM, recognize what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then have that or work directly with that PM coach. And then let's lay it all out. Like what are the things that we need to do? What are the things that we excel in? What are the things that we're not doing so good in? And let us know. It's worth the investment. I'll say that for sure.
It's of course you're talking about these things and I'm Googling here. Looking it up.
I can drop you some names.
No, so it was Star 10. It's like, and then it was Louder Than 10. Star 12.
Star 12.
Yep, and then Louder Than 10. Cool. It's rare that we come across somebody who's mentioning stuff that I actually haven't heard of. In that case, so that was a good one. Varun, do you have a follow-up? Otherwise, I'm going to pivot a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it.
All right. I would love if you could tell us your origin story, because yours is a fun one, and you name dropped earlier your experience with Martha. So tell us how you started this agency. How did you get into this? A little bit about your background.
Yep. Okay. So my background, I'll take you all the way back. So
the executive summary version of it would work.
I'll fast forward through the first part. So I was always into art and illustration. I always thought that was going to be my thing. I wanted to be a comic book artist. Quickly learned that comic book artists are it's a very cutthroat industry to get into, and I didn't have what it took to get into it. This is probably when I was around 17, 18 or so. Had a whole portfolio. Thought I was going to work in Anaheim, California at Image Comics, but then that didn't pan out. So I ended up in college pivoting to multimedia design, which ended up being like a lot of stationery packages and graphic design. Sometimes I'd get a fun thing where I get to make like a gig poster or something like that. But most of the time, it just ended up being business cards and stationery. I had this one client who said, thanks for the stationery package and everything, but can you make me a website? And I was like, absolutely. And then I had no idea how to do it. But I did have the back then Macromedia package where it was like freehand and Flash and Dreamweaver and whatnot and Fireworks. So I knew how to use Fireworks. I did everything in Fireworks. I sliced it up, exported it to Dreamweaver, figured out how to get it hosted. Back then it was on Media Temple. And then she loved it and she used it. There was no CMS or anything back then. And she had that thing up for like 10 years. And it was like, wow, like this was good. I think I'm gonna keep going with this. And she paid me like, I think it was $800 back then for like the stationery package and the website. And I was thoroughly happy with the process. So I kept this as like a little side gig as I was going through college. And then eventually I got a job at one agency as an intern, and then left that agency, went to another agency, and then started as an intern there, and then hired on full time. This is still while I was going to college. And then right at that time, we had a big hurricane hit here. It was Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans. That displaced us and kind of sent us in a whirlwind, no pun intended. And then after a couple of months, when things started landing, I put feelers back out there for other specifically web related things, because at that time, while I was away, I was just trying to build up my skill sets in like PHP back then. I was thinking I was going to be a backend developer because I'd really gotten into the code side of things. And then ended up getting a job with Emeril Lagasse as the webmaster for his marketing team. Fast forward about another year and a half. There was
could have just said, bam, I got a job with
I missed that
couldn't help
opportunity.
myself.
Or how about this one? Bam, Martha acquired the marketing and e-commerce division of Emeril. So that meant like a lot of the media in marketing portion, which I was part of, ended up getting moved, the home base getting moved to New York. So that's what sent me to New York. So I ended up living in New York for a number of years. My job transitioned into front-end developer for Martha Stewart. So in the 5 or so years that I was there, I worked my way up from front-end developer to director of front-end dev, which basically meant that I was in charge of the front-end dev for the main Martha site, and then the other Martha Stewart weddings and whole living and the other sites that Martha had at the time. That was a fun job. I was able to meet Martha. I was able to speak to Martha on the phone on a number of occasions. I was able to be in some intense meetings with her. Very smart, business-minded personality. Always knew what she wanted. Very, very much with it when it came to technology, and knew the right people to have in the room to talk about initiatives and new ideas and everything. So eternally grateful for that opportunity. Alluding back to when I said like there's the honeymoon period of living in New York, when things started to get real, and I just missed home, and I wanted to come back to New Orleans, and I had put in a 6-month notice that I'm going to be leaving my job, and I worked with who I consider my mentor, Ira Tao at the time, and after a while of he asked me what I was going to go do, and I said I was going to go start my own thing. And I was always doing side gigs, because when you're working with a specific digital team, your code base is your code base. You don't get a lot of opportunities to kind of deviate outside of the code base that you're working in. In front-end development at that time was just like the same way it is today. It just keeps on going and going and going. And I was always trying to chase the shiny objects. Like I just wanted to get on the bleeding edge of whatever was going on. And so I needed ways to test all these things, and I wanted to do more of that. So after 6 months, they weren't able to really find a replacement for my position. So after I let my boss know that I was going to be going back home, he asked if we could if Martha could be the first client of mine. And I was like, yeah, like that sounds great. I get to like do similar work, but from home, and then I can also take on other clients too. So for the first year, they signed up for 40 hours a week for a full year, which basically meant it was my one main client for the full year of me moving back here. I did have the opportunity to take on some other clients away from that. So back then I was probably working 70, 80 hours a week, just hustling. No kids back then, just keeping it churning and churning and churning. Things were going well. And it was a husband and wife team, because my wife had the financial background. She was good with accounting. She had just left a firm in New York where she was doing accounting and office management, operations management for them. So it just felt like the right fit. It's like, here's the person who's going to be doing the developing and the biz dev and the design. Here's the person who's going to be doing all the administrative pieces. So let's see how far we can get this. And then so we kept it going. The next year, when that contract was up, she had asked, or my contact at that time had asked if they can sign on again, and we had agreed on 20 hours a week for 6 months, because that we needed to have some availability for other clients to be able to come in, because or else I was just going to be stuck in the same position I was, just remotely working from New Orleans. So fortunately, I've met up with these wonderful people within the network, and this is kind of the way things go. It's like everybody who you work with in especially in the publication industry, it gets a little incestuous. So it's like these people who I once worked with at Martha Stewart ended up going to Condé Nast, or ended up going to Scripps Network, or Viacom, or Meredith, or Time, and all these other places. So some of those reached out. They were like, "Hey, I heard you doing your own thing." And I was like, "Yeah." And then we talked, and they were like, "Hey, we'd love to bring you on board to help us out with the thing." So it was more of that started to happen. It all ended up being in the lifestyle publication in business, though. So for like the first 4 years, 90% of the work that we did was lifestyle publications, like real simple, or publications in general, just like a lot of just strictly web publications. O'Reilly Media was one of them. But a lot of timing stuff, but it was great. I loved it. It was about at some point we needed to branch out and try other things. And then that happened like through just word of mouth. Other more fintech stuff started coming in, or marketing websites started coming in. It's like single page applications started to become a thing. And then we hired our first person in 2006, and she's still with us to this day. I'm sorry, 2016. That's not 2006. That's way too early. And I kind of like in that progressed like year over year. We've grown both by personnel and finances, and it's been a great ride ever since. It's definitely had its ups and downs, but yeah, I'm happy with the progress.
That's a wonderful story. I mean, really inspiring. Now, I would like to know where do you hang out now? Where do you spend your time to find your next shiny object that you have always been looking for?
That's a great question. So before I became what I'm calling myself now, founder and CEO, I was director of technology. So up until about maybe a year ago, I was a resource on projects, and that was selfish of me. I know that now, after having speaking to some other CEOs and agency owners, because there comes that time. This can kind of go back to the original question to start this podcast, where you had mentioned like, what is one of the hardest things you've done? Letting go of being. I also have a restaurant history. So I worked in the hospitality industry for a long time, in 5 pizza restaurants growing up, and there's a really interesting and amazing feeling about being in the weeds. Like when the tickets start coming in at 5 o'clock till you look at your watch, all of a sudden it's 11 o'clock and the kitchen's a mess, and then you gotta start cleaning up. I love that there's like an organized, beautiful chaos that happens in a dopamine rush from it, because like I love being in that level. There's a level of stress, but it's like good stress, it feels. So selfishly, I kept doing that. So for the longest time, I would immerse myself in projects. What I ended up doing was what I called second shift, which is, I guess, harkens back to my restaurant days. So from like 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. was like when I would do the majority of like my actual coding. So I'd be addressing tickets on projects and everything. And then from like 7 to 4 in the daytime is when I would be doing like CEO stuff, like emails and communication and phone calls and whatnot. And then I would get a little time with kids in the morning, a little family time in the morning, a little family time in the middle, and then kind of repeated that cycle over and over again. And it wasn't until it wasn't like a intervention, but it was like like death by 1,000 cuts of just people going, you should really scale back on the being involved in the projects, and like we really need you here doing these other things, because we're feeling like we could probably use you in these meetings to do those things. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be in that meeting. Y'all talking about legal stuff in that meeting. I want to be in this meeting where we're talking about like the tech stack we're using for this cool project coming up. So anyway, so about a year ago, I ended up agreeing to everybody who was completely right, and then detaching myself from all of that, and then working specifically in business development, working more with our business relationship specialists, working more with our project management team to make sure that all of that stuff is running seamlessly, discussing the future, doing a lot of 6 month, 1 year 3-year, 5-year planning and
Business adulting.
focusing. Yeah. This is the same. Wow, this is all coming
Mhm.
together now, because it's like it's the tearing myself away from the independence that I had before I had the
Mhm.
child, and this is the same. This is a therapy session.
We're here for you. We got you.
Then tearing myself away from selfishly wanting to code and design, and then move into the things that the business needed me for, to be a more responsible and accountable leader.
It's joking aside, it's the business adulting is an interesting shift away from the doing into that leadership role. I had a CMO very, very early in my career said that one of the hardest transitions for you in your career is going to be moving from, the doing into the managing, because you can't control everything. I'm like, you're crazy. Yes, I can. He was right, but it's totally a true statement. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I didn't end up where I thought we were going to end up, but I have one last question for you, TJ. What is exciting you about the future? What are you looking forward to? Outside of a lot of the personal stuff you got cooking.
I think the knee-jerk thing is AI, but I don't want to go that route. For us,
We're
I
all
don't
kind
know.
of excited about that.
I think that's yeah. We can just say, it just goes
We're all
without
kind of
saying
excited to see
that
what
we're all
happens there.
curious about where things are going
Curious.
with
Okay.
that. In the one thing on AI, I'll say is we're not in any kind of like concerned mode, but we are trying to leverage it as much as we can, to the extent of
Play nice.
using it to enhance our abilities instead of like substituting the things that we're doing now. Like that's kind of the bifurcation of like AI. Like we're not using the part that's taking other people's jobs or taking over our jobs. What we're doing is using it to enhance things that we're currently doing. Like instead of pull requests for code, run that code through AI just to get a second opinion on it before you actually submit the pull request. So little things like that. We don't do it with every project, but it's nice to get that second opinion. That's what I call it. So it's like check my code here. I guess it's like copy editing in a way. It's like, check this for grammar, make sure it's okay. And then sometimes it'll call out things. Sometimes I'll just say, I was lazy at it and put comments in my code, comment this code, and then it'll pepper comments throughout the code. So that's I'll stop right there on the AI thing. I'm cautiously optimistic about it is a good way to put it.
All right, that's good.
But the things that really excite me, I think, are it's the navigating the ambiguity of our industry and being able to like make smart decisions and pivot when we need to. And this is one of the things that I'm proud of myself as CEO. There's hard decisions that you have to make, like laying people off is like the most gut-wrenching thing that you can do. But then like making educated decisions based off of what you recognize that was a bad decision that you've made in the past that led to those layoffs, and then instilling new processes and hiring the right people to help you with plugging those gaps and figuring out those inefficiencies, and then seeing the growth from it, like your return on investment for those things, and then all of a sudden recognizing you've been doing things wrong for a long time. And that's only a little subset. Like there's probably going to be another like version of this that's going to happen in 6 months, and then another 6 months. But there's something exciting about it. Maybe this is similar to like the kitchen chaos that I like. This is the industry chaos that we're feeling now, and I think it's exciting. I've never once had a like I'm gonna just give this all up and go farming. I feel like I'm in it for the long haul, and I'm curious to see what comes up next, and that's what keeps me going.
That's a good answer. I don't know if I've ever had a moment where I said I'm going to give this up and go farming. I have had the I'm going to give this up and go make ice cream, but
I've considered buying chickens, like starting a chicken coop. I got
That's
a
normal.
buddy
We
of
have
mine
them
on our
here.
team.
Yeah, there you go.
He's got a chicken coop, and we got a lot of mouths to feed now, and all the kids love eggs. So
There you go.
My thing is the hiking. If I have to give up and go anywhere, I'll just spend my time in the mountains. I don't like gardening. I have brown thumb. All the plants that I sow, they just die. So I just love nature. Anyways, thank you.
There you go.
That was awesome.
That should be our last question every time. Like, what would you give this all up for and go do? That'll be our
That's a
next
good one.
icebreaker. Yeah,
That's a good opening, and you had a good opening, and that'd be a good closer.
it was. This is a pivot episode for us. We've tried some new stuff out for you with you.
You have any
So-
template?
Yeah, it's true. Well, this was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today in the episode.
Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you.
I hope I
So
didn't
for
talk
those,
too much.
no, you did great. So for those folks looking to connect with you, you're on the LinkedIn, both you and the company, and then it's just south.
Yeah,
Left
sometimes it's hard to say.
.com.
It's not southwest. It's
No, it's
south left.
south-left.
It's like the compass direction and the gesturing direction.
There you
It's
go.
South in the left hand
So-
.com.
There you go. Well, thank you so much. And that's it, everyone. If you learned something today or laughed, tell someone about the podcast. See you next time.
Thank y'all.
Thanks for listening. Find our other episodes on agenciesthatbuild.com. Plus, we're listed anywhere you find your favorite podcast.